How many people India has already onboarded onto the digital platform? This is from a NSS, National Sample Survey of the Ministry of Statistics. As official as it gets, numbers in India, approximately 85.5% of households possess at least one smartphone. Around 86.3% households in India have access to internet within the household premises. And then there's more data in terms of growth of digitization. While China dominates in value, in terms of number of transactions, India processes the largest number of real-time digital transactions globally, accounting for 50% of the world's total, significantly higher than the combined volumes of US, China, and EU. So we have onboarded a lot. Otherwise, you can't be processing the maximum number of transactions in the world, accounting for 50% of transactions onboarded. So a lot has been done. We are now talking about onboarding the next 300 million. But what is the first? Is it the first 300, 200, 100? I think that question will go to Lalitha. As the CEO of BHIM, I guess best placed, how many have we onboarded in terms of digital payments?
I think it's over 400 million, about 400 to 450 million users have been onboarded on digital payments, Latha, so far.
And what is the pace of growth? I mean, how much was it last year, for instance, or the year before?
Should be about a 12% CAGR will be the pace of growth. While I'm saying that there are more than 400 million users onboarded, there will also be people who are onboarded but not utilizing fully because of various inhibitions.
That includes the 400 million?
Yes, which we will cover during the course of the panel, I'm very sure. But yes, it includes that also.
Why don't you start from there? Okay. I'm not being partial to her because she's a woman. It's because, BHIM represents NPCI, which is the, organization that has laid the rails for digitalization in India and digitized payments. So over to you, Lalitha. What inhibits people who have been onboarded but not using?
Okay. So I think a couple of things. One thing that we had done a survey a few months back when we were trying to relaunch the BHIM app. And one of the things that came to us as a feedback was that people feel that using UPI or using a digital payment as opposed to a credit card may not give them a credit score, right? When you use a debit instrument, you don't get a credit score, right? That's one. Second, they did not know if the payment fails, be it a card payment or a UPI payment or anything else, whom do I go to? What do I do? I'm supposed to raise a dispute. I raise a dispute, and then it goes into a black box. I don't know what happens. Will I lose money? If I lose money, will I get money back? And then there are a lot of these cohorts, which are communities, right? So one bad thing happens to one person in the community, the entire community feels that, you know what, better to stay safe. Right? So there are people who've got onboarded because of a lot of interest and enthusiasm. There will be some of them who are not using it, which is also a part of this 490 million. And that is our endeavor to solve this. We also have a set of people like aged parents of all of ours who want to use, who consume a lot of digital content. All of them are available on internet and WhatsApp and do a lot of voice videos and audios. But they feel that this is probably alien to them. So there are multiple cohorts, and these are the people who have onboarded but not used.
Okay, actually, you're already giving us, the obstacles to the next 300 million in what you've said. But let me come to that, Mr. Lakshminarayanan. To onboard, we have reached what, 400, 490, she said. For the next 300, what would occur to you as the first problem of onboarding?
Yeah, I think I was asking the question, why do we want to onboard the next 300?
Okay. Well, if you want to give yourself that question, then go ahead.
No, I suppose there are answers to that, but I won't. But I think, what has got us to the first 400 will not get us to the next 300. And it reminds me of, I think it requires a full rethinking of the business model. The stakeholders in the system today, the banks, the merchants, the customers, what's in it for them in the rural area to onboard into this is not very clear. Banks are already straining with the incentives taken away from them. They just have to invest more and more infrastructure. And you add 300 million more, their cost is going to go up.
So one disincentive for banks is clear.
Yeah, and for the merchants, clearly, they don't see any incentives on accepting digital transactions because they're happy with the cash. Their inventory turn is much faster if they had the cash on hand rather than waiting for settlements and some of the issues that Lalitha talked about if refunds don't happen. And similarly for the customers as well. There is no incentive for them. Credit scoring is one of them. But really, there is no incentive for them to move to the digital platform. So I think that's the set of three things. I think it's the business model itself needs to be rethought. And I don't think, as I said, what got us to the first 400 will not get us to the next 300.
Well, you took away my next question, which was what will incentivize? But we will come to that. We have to look at positive steps that can incentivize. Let me look at the problems. Mr. Gaur, I think Paytm did a great job of cracking even the first 400. In terms of, unlike NPCI, which did not have to make money, you had to make money. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So something incentivized you to the first 400. If you can tell us what are the problems you face, therefore.
So the business model is very clear for at least to fintechs and other companies like Paytm. You get a customer because if you look into the customer or the merchant ecosystem, everybody is collecting money. If he takes money in cash, we don't know what is his earning. Why digitalization is important for the India is because if we have to look for 1 trillion economy or digital economy, we have to have at least 500, 600 million active users. And once we know that what is the pattern of his earning, there is a business model of financing over it. Because today, there are a lot of people who earn good amount of money, but if they are the need of some kind of financing, they go to an unstructured way of financing, which is actually not giving him good returns in terms of the capital or the interest which he gives. Second is how we do it. So one of the important factor which we have seen, because if we talk about Paytm, we have close to 35 million merchants. And we have merchants in close to 1,200 plus cities, which is way, way deeper. And thanks to the NPCI and RBI, the digital...
Can you repeat the numbers you have?
We have close to 1,200 cities where we have merchants who are accepting payments every month on month. And we have devices which will help us because if we have to onboard merchants or customers in deep rural or tier 3, it has to be the vernacular. It can't go with English. It can't only be text-based. It has to be voice-based. So the efforts, the AI, we had a beautiful session on AI previous to us. AI will help us immensely in cutting the cost of operations at least for fintech and banks, because earlier developing an app in a vernacular language was very difficult. But now with the help of AI, it is very easy to launch at a low cost. So I think we took around a decade to get, at least a decade to get 400 million customers.
Yes, yes.
But in next 6 to 7 years, our pace of getting 300 million can be achieved because of the technology which is available today.
Okay. You spoke about getting into your payment system, people who were hitherto using cash. Would you say Paytm has covered almost everyone who uses cash? Because there the problem is different. Where you have cash, you have an incentive to join. What Mr. Lakshminarayanan is pointing out to that part of people who really are not even that helpful for banks because they are not doing much transaction. They are economically in a different category. Would you say you have covered everyone who is good in cash?
No. I think there is, at least on the merchant side, which I represent in Paytm, there are close to like 60 million merchants in India, which we feel with the surveys and whatever study we do, and we are close to like 35 million. So it is still a very long journey. If you go to a tier 3, tier 4 city, you will hardly see 8 to 10% of shops having QR. So that journey is still far. And once the people come on the digital ecosystem, they realize that their earning is recorded. If their earning is recorded, especially on the merchant side, they have that tomorrow if I need a capital for my business or to expand my business, I can show that. The problem with in tier 3 and tier 4 cities is they may be earning good amount of money. They're actually more richer than a service class people in the Gurgaon or a metro, but they don't have a earning, what you call the, if you
have a record.
So banks cannot lend them. So they are forced to take money from some local person, and they are just not helping the banking ecosystem also.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Mr. Gaur, is that from 35 to 60 million should be an easier ride for Paytm.
Yes, not only Paytm, but overall ecosystem, because of the technology which we have got today was not available at least even 6 months back. In AI, every quarter there is a lot of change which happens in the technology and the business models.
If we have to succeed in onboarding the next 300 million, it has to be the banks. And banks are not incentivized because there isn't much money over there. I can report a conversation, which I couldn't report earlier, between an RBI deputy governor and a bunch of bankers, and the deputy governor roundly chided the bankers for just giving away the UPI game to Google Pay. I mean, what were you all doing? GPay is taking away everything. And, you guys couldn't put together a platform where you could pay from bank to bank on an app designed called India Pay or something like that. How did you give it away? But the banker said, we couldn't say this in RBI because they are the regulator. But where is the money? Google has deep pockets. They're not earning a penny from Google Pay, and they are ready to spend. Can we banks do it? So that question straight away to you. Ravindra, what do you banks want? That you can extend the 300 million. We know that banks are loaded, and they've gone through the service ecosystem, hand-holding the fisc for priority sector. Jan Dhan, again, it was a cost to all the banks, Jan Dhan, and they didn't make money on it. So how should the regulator or the government enroll your support to extend?
So convenience comes at a cost, right? So somebody has to pick up the tab. Well, we're talking about enrolling, 300 million people, and also technology is the only solution for this. And just now, even before we started this, we were talking about how investment heavy, all this technology, is. And that is where your outsourcing models and partnership models are very relevant. And this is one place where I look at probably, banks and all the NBFCs or any, MFIs. Partnerships are very much required for this. Unless and until you partner with, tech-related giants or tech-related tech enablers, this would be very difficult. Yes, cost is there, somebody has to.
Would you expect a subsidy like, beyond this number, the banks should be reimbursed? I think the government even thought of reimbursing some of the MDR payments, provided you keep UPI free.
Correct.
So would a reimbursement kind of thing work for the banks?
That would be brilliant. That would be brilliant. That would be a great thing to do it. That's exactly what we discussed right away about
if the cost, as you say, for onboarding is 25 rupees, then the government bears 20 rupees or 15 rupees.
Correct. That would be a great way of helping out the banks, because as in the point of reputation, because technology is highly disruptive, because you invest a lot, this is the biggest challenge. Invest a lot and suddenly it becomes obsolete.
PhonePe takes away the customer.
Yeah, it does happen. So that is where we all need to come out with the solution. Probably, as you rightly said, if the government incentivizes, that will be one step forward for the banks to come forward and see what we can do much better with this.
Even if the government were to pay that initial amount, they're not going to pay it to Paytm, is my assumption. They're more likely to do it to banks, because they see that as the lowest common denominator, serving your driver and your maid to open accounts. Savings bank account holders would be the one they would go to. What would be Paytm's view in terms of, what will incentivize you to go through the next 300?
So, government have certain subsidies and incentives which can increase, or so like there is a specific zone which government calls as PIDF, which is not so highly digital zone. EIDF, where for merchant onboarding and for soundbox placement on those zones, RBI gives a decent kind of incentives for a device. Okay, so and that incentive...
It's already there, incentives are there.
It is already there. That incentives directly comes to Paytm. But it is very important that we have to understand that why these people are still not on the system. Everybody is trying, Paytm is trying, banks are also trying. But how we solve the trust problem, which Lalitha was mentioning, that they are not, it is not that they are not onboarded because people have not trying to onboard. It is because they don't trust the ecosystem. कि यार मेरा पैसा ना चला जाएगा. So if we have to onboard these, we have to solve first. One is the business model is obviously we have to solve, but how we solve the trust deficit with these people have because of their ecosystem awareness or the digital ecosystem awareness, because they feel, yeah, if something happens on this app, I have no face to complain. And if we solve that problem and we build a confidence that, okay, your problems can be solved sitting at your home, then the onboarding will become faster for especially in tier 3, 4. Because today, when Jan Dhan account were opened, it was a face or a bank name or a branch which they could see. But especially on a UPI kind of a system, they feel if something happens to my balance in my account, I have nobody to complain. And there people churn out of the system or they don't come at the system.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I would count as among the top financially literate and digitally literate person. If I have a problem with the bank, I call the corporate communications department of the bank, people with whom I always deal with. I don't call the call center. I mean, if a person like me behaves so badly, I mean, or at least is, oh, call center will take time. I have to search for the call center number. Should I look at the credit card? Is it written over there? You know, all these things, I'm still not looking at the call center number. It will be way more difficult for someone who is not in English or for someone who is not digitally savvy. Now, Lalitha, how do you solve this problem? Hand-holding. I mean, even Digi Yatra, we have hand-holding. We all do it at home, but when we go over there in the airport, there are people who are helping us. And that makes you feel better, that someone is there to help you. So how do you get this human element in?
No, so I think there are three different cohorts of people whom we need to address. One is people who consume digital content but are not on digital, which is, you know, even like I said, our parents and the some people who are also in the younger generation who prefer to use cash. Some of the products that we've made very recently, you know, we launched today a product called UPI Circle, which allows you to delegate money to somebody. They pay on your account with a particular limit. Oh. So you basically warm them up to payments, but don't give their bank account linked, so they don't lose money, and you keep either authorizing the payment or you give them the authority.
But how do you do that? You personally go to each person?
No. So this is for people like, you know, people like us and people like our parents, right? The second cohort and the third cohort. In the last 300 mile that we're talking about, the last mile, right? I think we have to look at the women population differently and the men population differently. Oh. So these are three cohorts that I feel which are to be addressed. The first one is easy because it's a product solve. The second and the third, I think, is a product plus intent plus technology solve. When we did a survey, again, a lot of women who wanted to use UPI could not use UPI because they had one phone in the family and the Aadhaar number was linked to that one phone, right? So they can't onboard. You do a SIM and a device binding. So that's a product plus a technology solve. Second, you know, my mom used to do this. She used to keep a lot of money in those jars in home, right? So I don't want to come on UPI because I want my savings to be my savings. I don't want my spouse to know about it. So it's an intent solve. So how do we create people-first products for this women population who helps them to come on to this? Because they have an intent, but their intent is a little bit different from that. So this cohort will have to be addressed through product solve and a technology solve which helps them get over that intent. The third one, of course, is the men in the cohort, where I think it's important. Assisted, the business correspondent network today is doing a great job in actually going and meeting them and solving for a lot of problems, and we have a lot of product unlocks there. So I think you should use assistance to begin with because there is no other option. sometimes it's okay to use assistants because if you make their onboarding frictionless, they may fall prey to unnecessary frauds and their start is going to be patchy. So it's okay to use assistants. That's why the cost of onboarding is going to be high. But with assistants and with a little bit of, let's say, for example, most of them are covered by banks, right? If the bank branches tell them that, you know what, every time you open an account, aapko main ye app set up karke de dunga. That could be the assistance. It need not necessarily be a BC. It can be any touch point of them with somebody who is probably a little more financially literate than them. So that can be a way to solve. So these are the three cohorts, if I can summarize as important.
That's excellent. You know, that was going to be my last round of questions, and you have already answered it. I want from each one of you at least one, or if you wish more, advice to the government or to the regulator or to the system, ecosystem itself, to get the next 300. One or two pieces of advice.
I think we had a lot of ideas, including how you could deploy a network in the rural area, like a LoRaWAN and other technologies. There are newer technologies coming which will not require that much of bandwidth and make it a lot more secure, like the named data networks, which are very secure. So you can solve a technology set of problems. We can take some of the incentives and onboarding assisted through the correspondence and so on. My suggestion would be to take a microcosm of 3 districts and do a pilot there and really measure all the cohorts, what incentivizes and how do. And more than that, once they're onboarded, can we solve the credit score problem? Use their payment history to give them loans, for example. So that, it goes beyond just the incentive in the form of some kind of a cashback or anything else. Other incentives which will tell them, hey, it was good for me to come on the digital bandwagon because I'm getting a lot more benefits out of this. Right? So I think we can experiment in a certain way, combined with technology, combine selecting the cohorts, combining certain incentives and everything, and do that as a.
I think a microcosm idea would be great because then you can, from the pilot, extrapolate to the whole. Mr. Gaur?
So one of the programs which government has done very well in India in last 30, 40 years is the vaccination program. And we can learn from that. We have seen that vaccination worked very well in India when we had ambassadors in every village who were driving that. So we can have digital ambassador program kind of a thing where a person is maybe appointed with some money or just recognition, where his role is to make people digitally savvy, and government is endorsing those digital ambassadors. Like we have concepts of like Health Didi and other, especially in vaccination. So now the time has come that we should have digital ambassadors program from the government of India or NPCI or certain fintechs and drive the onboarding and digital adoption in the rural India.
Bank Didi would be a good idea. I agree with you. But Mr. Gaur, I thought you will speak about your agentic AI. The voice box is now talking back, I believe.
Yeah. So I think when Latha was mentioning, I understand that today we are talking assisted as a human touch. But we at Paytm are very sure that assisted does not require human touch. You have call centers which are now AI-driven. Earlier, you were talking to a person when you're dialing in. Now there's an AI bot or a voice bot which responds in a better way than a human will. So I don't feel that the time in next 6 to 8 months, the assisted human touch will go away. Assisted will be purely AI. We have seen this happening in, at least in the call center industry at this point of time.
No, absolutely. Actually, you can combine what Lalitha is saying, have a Bank Didi show, how the agentic works, and then perhaps the rest of the village or the cohort or the ecosystem is able to pick up, hopefully something like that. All three of you are looking at a pilot that can be extrapolated. Ravindra, what's the advice or suggestion?
So for me, probably it'll be trust, belief, and confidence. So you need to give confidence to the people. For instance, today, if somebody loses money while doing a transaction, like how we said, they lose out. There is probably my probably request to the government would be like how we were talking about how 2FA is there in India, and outside India, probably if somebody loses out on a credit card, they're insured, and then the money comes back. So if you give this confidence to the people at large, that even by mistakes, things happen. if they lose money, they are going to be, taken care of if it's, happen. Genuine error, yeah, exactly. So these kind of messages, if it goes out, I think this will be a great way of, probably if you want my father or my mother to come on, because it's very difficult, because somebody calls them and I'm calling from the bank, they reach out to their, a debit card or credit card to tell what the number is, because that's their belief. So this is where we need to be very clear how, as regulators, as government, as bankers, we give confidence to the people out there, because as I already told you, the 300 million coming in would basically be from the tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 cities. And these are the cities, these are aspirational cities. Because I also know that in the Western Ghats, there are small villages. And they do a lot of QR-based transactions.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do a lot of transactions. So the country has moved on. But again, they don't know where to go. So if this problem is solved, I think we can reach this target beyond prior to what he was talking about, 5, 6 years. I think by around 3.5 years.